Representative. I will just read this and a short, probably, deliberation. This is a translation. Thank you. Calling Trump's deal of the century as Balfour 2.0 is an understatement. It is the most outrageous and yet again the violation of the rights of the Palestinians at its worst. This time around, they want to abrogate the rights of the Palestinians altogether and to assign their legitimate cause to oblivion. The so-called peace plan touted by Trump through his senior advisor Jared Krushner earlier has been revealed by both Trump and Netanyahu, cloaked in a deceptive phrase, peace to prosperity. On both counts, it was never meant to be peace for the Palestinians by any measure, and prosperity by the Zionists and their lackeys. What is in store for the Palestinians from the plan? Simply, it is meant to assign the century-old legitimate struggle of the Palestinians for the rights to their homeland, rights to sovereignty, and the rights of return to the bin of history, to be forgotten and erased completely from the memory. Using the economic baits, Trump managed to coax the Arab states of Saudi, the UAE, and Bahrain, among others, to hail the plan as a new dawn for the Palestinians. Instead of standing for the non-negotiable rights of the Palestinians, they advocate the US-Israeli agenda to further erode their rights or whatever is left of it. The broad implication of the plan is to ignore all previous agreements based on a two-state solution, thus rendering the Palestinians' demand for a state based on the pre-1967 borders as irrelevant. What is meant by this is Palestinians will continue to live under Israel apartheid, devoid of any shreds of dignity and freedom. Peace would be as elusive as ever for the Palestinians, and prosperity is reserved exclusively to the Zionists. The so-called Palestinian territories will remain as disjointed cantonments akin to the Batustan state that will be placed under complete control of the Israeli security apparatus. On the questions of refugees, Palestinians in the respective host Arab countries will be naturalized as part of the normalization process. No details were given as to how this would be resolved. What would happen is the refugees will continue to be banished by all parties on accusation of belonging to a terrorist outfit. The whole wide world, Trump will use the provisions of the plan to stop all forms of humanitarian aid to the oppressed Palestinians on the pretext of aiding elements of Palestinian terrorists. Any forms of resistance which is legitimate for Palestine under a foreign occupation will be assigned as a manifestation of terrorism. Any calls for boycott by any initiatives will be taken as a support of terrorism and conveniently labeled as anti-Semitism. In other words, Israel will be given an ironclad protection from any attempts at confronting the regime acts of criminality against the Palestinians. In light of this outrageous development, we, the undersigned, call for, number one, a concerted effort by the international community to stop this gross plan of complete annihilation of Palestinian rights and existence from being materialized. Number two, the United Nations to call for an emergency meeting or summon the Security Council to pass a resolution condemning this outrageous plan. Number three, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, Arab League, Non-Aligned Movement, and other international forums to convene and pass a declaration of dismissal of the plan in no uncertain terms. Number four, the network of civil societies to express their grave concern on the future of the Palestinian people and urge the US to respect the rights of the Palestinian people from further erosion by the Israeli regime. We, the undersigned, represent the coalition of Malaysian NGOs supporting the Palestinian people, representing Malaysians of all walks of life, hereby express our solidarity with the Palestinian people in rejecting the abrasive so-called deal of the century. Now, the word is plan. Definitely this is not a plan. This is a conspiracy. The word says peace. Definitely this is not peace. This is war. So it is wrong to say this is a peace plan. This is a war plan.
War conspiracy.
Yeah. This is a war conspiracy. This is a war plan. You have these two guys. One is impeached. Another is indicted. How can the world accept these two idiots and these two shaitans to come forward and tell the world that we are for peace? And you are negating all laws, all red lines. We will not ignore that all this, as Brother Hafizi is saying, that they started with closing down the office of the Palestinians Liberation Organization in Washington, and then followed up by suspended aid to the Palestinian Authority, and then transferred the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and then repealed U.S. recognition of the refugee issue by suspending all funding to UNRWA, or the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. They even allowed a new tunnel under the Al-Aqsa. With all this recorded and declared, how can you say that this is for peace? And therefore, I think the rejection is not only about condemning, it's a total rejection and must be strongly opposed in every terms possible. The Malaysian citizens that we have now, we have been consistent. Our Prime Minister has been consistent. Our government has been consistent. And yet we see the Palestinians are suffering more and more. You have a very strong supporter of Zionism, Yani Krushner. These three names, Trump, Netanyahu, and Krushner, these three guys are working day and night to get this thing through, and now we see it materialize. And therefore, we must now act promptly and we must act strongly. There's enough of statements that have been made for the last decades opposing the Israeli, opposing this illegitimate state. But the fact is that things are getting worse. Now, if this plan is been materialized in its practical form, we will have war. And that's why we are calling from this statement that the Malaysian government, as a start, should push for the UN convening of the UN immediately. Because Malaysia will not have that strong voice in the Security Council, have a General Assembly of the UN as an emergency assembly. Number two, we are talking about the regional perspective. It is not only about Palestinian, it's going to burn the whole world. So if the regional makeup of nations of ASEAN or South Asia or whatever, if we don't respond, then we have a war of the world. So the regional nations of ASEAN must make a strong protest against this. Number three, we are talking about the international forums that we have now. I think the most important one is, of course, the UN. But UN is always been taken lightly. We have dozens of resolutions, but nothing practical. Now we have to act in a way that the international communities, from the international forums, international movements of people, we have to make that impact. My last call, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a spark where now we have the Palestinians, we have leaders who have come here Abu Abid, Ismail Hania was here, and we have Khalid Mishal was here. Now they are gaining this way of how to unite the Palestinians. We understand the problems, we understand the dispute, we understand the disagreements, but now is a time they will unite. Mahmoud Abbas is reacting very positively that we totally reject it. This is selling the whole Palestinians, and Abu Abid has made a statement that they will come and meet. And I think this is good. We feel comfortable with this. The Malaysians are always having this problem of, this difficulty between Palestinians. But I've been talking to our brothers. Now they will come to terms, and we will act in a united voice. The only problem now is that we need a lot of voices out there. We want the whole Malaysians to feel it. We are trying to mobilize the 6,400 masajid. We're going to go to all campuses. We're going to call all the muftis to make a strong statement about this. We will in fact try to send a message to our rulers, the Council of Rulers, our sultans, that they, under the name of the vanguards of religion, this is about religion, this is about peace, and we ask the sultans also to be concerned that they have to also voice. So this is my addition to it. I don't know whether you can quote this, but the one that I've read is the official one. The unofficial is mine. So it's up to you to quote. Thank you so much. You have any questions, I'll leave it back to the chairman.
Yes,